Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between to the Movie Squib channel. I'm your host, Charlie, and today I'd like to discuss the multiple counts of negligent homicide that Billy Peltzer committed in the 1984 film Gremlins. Now, I know that seems like a strong accusation, but allow me to present my case. So first, let's take a look under the hood of this film and see what we're working with. Okay, we've got Gremlins, 1984, directed by Joe Dante, written by Chris Columbus, who has gone on to do other amazing works, and he's the reason why Steven Spielberg became involved. Now for actors, we've got Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, Polly Holliday, and Francis Lee McCain, and Howie Mandel providing the voice of Gizmo. Oh, by the way, take a look at who's the EP right there. Name looks familiar? Yeah, she's been in the business for a very long time, which is why it's hard to get rid of her. Oh, one other fun fact is that this movie and the Temple of Doom is the reason why we have a PG-13 rating. This movie was actually rated PG and the Temple of Doom was rated PG, and there was a lot of complaints because it wasn't really a PG type of movie. So Steven Spielberg himself actually suggested that they do a PG-13 rating, and 2 months after Gremlins was released, boom, PG-13 rating. Okay. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the film so I can show you how absolutely reckless Billy is, and to an extent, his dad also shares some of the blame. So the film starts off with Peltzer Sr. He's looking for a gift for his son for Christmas, and what better place to look for a gift than in a dirty alley in Chinatown in a disgusting, shady basement. So he goes in there, he's trying to peddle one of his useless inventions that usually never work. He hears a little noise in the back room, and then that's when he discovers the Mogwai. So Wing wisely says no, but the little kid knows they need the money, so he tells Rand to wait out back, and then he brings the Mogwai out. He takes the money, and he tells Rand there's 3 important rules: no bright sunlight, you can't get them wet, and never ever feed them after midnight. And what does he say? Sure, kid, whatever you say. No questioning of what happens. He's not like, well, what happens if I give them water, or what happens if I feed them after midnight? No, he's just like, okay, whatever you say, and just moves on. He is so reckless. Anywho, so we move on to the town of Kingston Falls, which, if it looks familiar to you, that's because that's the same exact town center as Back to the Future. Now we meet Billy, who is this young bright-eyed kid. He's working at the bank while also going to school, and it seems all in well, but already we have a problem. You see, he has a home, his mother's home, and yet he's taking his dog to work and then tying the dog up inside of a tiny cupboard under his feet. Does that sound like a good pet owner to you? To just leave the dog sitting in that tiny cupboard for hours on end while you do work? I don't get it. Now, we also get to meet one of the victims of Billy's incompetence, although to be fair, if you've seen the film, she totally deserves it. Actually, she kind of looks like that lawyer for Trump, the one that they called the Kraken. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she looks like that bitch. So she's actually talking about killing Billy's dog, but as evil as she is, it sounds like Billy's pretty reckless by letting his dog loose and going around a woman like that, who is obviously insane. But I digress. That's not the worst of Billy's actions. I'm just kind of giving you an appetizer of what's to come. Okay, so Peltzer Sr. gets home, he introduces Billy to the Mogwai, and within 2 minutes, they already flash him with bright light. This family is a menace, except for the mom, and I'll explain that in a bit. So later on, Billy's upstairs with the Mogwai, and then once again, he exposes him to bright light. The Mogwai falls and hurts himself. And then again, when he's taking him to the bathroom, there's bright light on. I mean, this guy, in the matter of an hour, he has already tortured this animal. Okay, we're on day 2. Let's give Billy a fresh start. He knows the rules now. He knows how to take care of the mogwai. Let's see how it starts out. So he's up in his room and he invites a boy half his age while he's changing his shirt, which totally doesn't look weird at all. By the way, that's Corey Feldman. He's in a ton of movies. He just is a staple of 80s and 90s movies. So Corey's like, oh, that's a cool mogwai. And he's like, can I pick it up? And Billy's like, sure. And Corey spills water on the mogwai. And you can see there, poor Gizmo is just suffering. He's in pain while these things are coming out. And they're just like, whoa, what's going on? Now, I think it's actually funny that after all of this happens and the 5 other mogwai spawn, Corey Feldman's character is completely not interested anymore and he's just back to reading comics. He would have made the perfect millennial. Billy's like, now I've got 5 more mogwais to take care of. Then he goes and tells his father, and instead of his father being like, oh my god, like now we've got 6 mogwais, like this is a little bit dangerous if all that it takes is water to make them multiply. No. He's like seeing dollar signs and he's like, oh my god, we could put a mogwai in every home. He's like, we could make a bundle of money. And all I can think is, this man is a menace. So Billy ends up taking one of the new mogwais to his high school so that it can be evaluated by one of the greatest minds that he knows, a high school science teacher. So Science Man sees this thing and Billy says, yo, check this out, and puts water on the new mogwai and multiplies him. Why? Why would you do that? So the guy's amazed and he's like, hey, can I keep one of those? And of course, Billy's like, yeah, keep him. What's the worst that can happen? And then he tells him like, oh, you know, don't feed him after midnight and blah, blah, blah. But again, nobody has asked what happens if you feed them after midnight. But don't worry. We're about to get to that. So later, I would like to remind you, we are still on night 2. Billy is tricked into giving the mogwais food. Now, okay, I'm not going to completely blame him for this because the mogwais did trick him. But the next morning when he woke up, why in God's name would he have just left those things there? With his mother, no less. Look at how disgusting and gross and creepy they look. Do you think that you should just keep them laying around and let your mom just sit there taking care of them? No, either pick them up and put them in a secure location or just stomp on those things. They look fucking creepy. But no. Billy goes to school and Science Man tells him that the same thing happened to them because they're both completely irresponsible. But unlike Billy, Science Man will get his comeuppance, and I'll explain that in a bit. Billy's just gonna pretend like nothing is wrong and he's going to go to work. So while Billy's at work, in the classroom, the cocoon hatches and Science Man closes the door and he's looking for this newfound creature and he gets his comeuppance. So that's one count of negligent homicide right there. So Billy makes it to the high school and then he sees that Science Man is no more. By the way, there's a syringe there in his butt, but it's not fully plunged in. So did he die from what's in that syringe? Or did the gremlin end up smashing up his face? I guess we'll never know. Anyway, Billy tries to call his mom and he ends up getting scratched, which is, ooh, so scary. He does warn his mother. Now, here's a couple of things about the mom. I think that she is a goddamn hero in this movie. Let me tell you why. Number one, she single-handedly kills 3 gremlins by herself. Now, I will admit this, she should have just left the house, but she didn't know what she was dealing with, so she decided to go upstairs, and at the very least, she brought a knife with her. By the way, those gingerbread cookies, don't they look so delicious? Oh, I want gingerbread cookies now. So she goes upstairs, she sees that the cocoons have hatched, and then she sees one of the gremlins. Now she immediately kills it knowing that it's a danger. Imagine if Billy was in this situation. He'd probably give it food just like Science Man, because he's an idiot. But no, the mother immediately kills it, and then she stabs the second one psycho style, like, wee, 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 wee. And again, total badass. She took that thing down. And then the final gremlin is the one with the microwave. Once again, total badass, throws them in the microwave, hits the button for popcorn, and mwah! Looks delicious. I can't wait to have some. And then when she's looking for the other gremlins, look, take a look at what she's doing. Look, she's grabbing 2 knives. That's a badass right there. Now, I'm gonna have to give Billy some credit because he does take out 1 gremlin here, but he ends up taking Mom to a neighbor's house so that she can be cared for. But to be honest, if he took his mom with her on his journey, she would have sorted that shit out and the movie would have been over before the entire town was overrun by these monsters. But anyway, Billy goes after Stripe, which is the only surviving gremlin. And by the way, if water makes them multiply, I'm not a science man, but isn't snow made of water? Let's not think about it. So Stripe ends up going to the YMCA to decide to take a dip in the pool. Of course, dipshit Billy doesn't stop this tiny gremlin because he's completely useless. And now we've got a gremlin army and awesome stop animation that I will never stop loving. Now, Billy finally decides to do the right thing and go to the cops. Unfortunately, there's only 2 cops in the entire town and they're pissed drunk and they totally don't believe Billy. And the way he's talking, I guess I wouldn't believe him either. By the way, does that guy look familiar to you? That's Mike from Breaking Bad. This is his origin story. Anyway, all these calls start coming in about the gremlins finally causing havoc throughout town, so they go out and check it out. I think it's absolutely hilarious that they see Mrs. Deagle fly out of the window and they start to see the Santa with the gremlins on it, and instead of helping them out, they're just like, can we go? Like, let's get the hell out of here, and they just leave. Unfortunately for them, their brakes get cut by one of the gremlins and they end up flipping over. But here's the hilarious thing. So all hell is breaking loose in the town. The gremlins are wreaking havoc on the townsfolk, and you can see the town itself is under complete chaos. There's cars crashing everywhere. There's gremlins everywhere. There's people everywhere freaking out. And then later on in the movie, they're nowhere to be found. There's no people. There's no bodies. There's nothing but silence. And I'm just like, okay, in the movie, the gremlins all went to the theater, but where did the people go? Where did the bodies go? It blew my mind. I didn't understand. I'm assuming some of the people died in this thing. So again, there's multiple counts of negligent homicide on Billy's part because again, these animals derived from his pet of which he is the owner. Before I go on, I would be remiss if I didn't mention 2 things. Number 1, as a kid when I watched this movie, I didn't really care for Kate's backstory, which is played by Phoebe Cates. Now, as an adult, when I watched this movie again, I absolutely love the dark and twisted backstory. So basically, she hates Christmas, and she kind of gives Billy a clue early on in the movie that not everybody likes Christmas, which Billy is also a complete idiot because he's like, what's not to like about Christmas? As if there's no depressed people during the holidays. I mean, he is just a simple creature. Anyway, so what happened to Phoebe is when she was a kid, her father, on Christmas Eve, he wanted to pretend to be Santa, so he was up on the roof and he decided to go down the chimney to surprise the family with gifts, and then he slipped and broke his neck inside of the chimney. Now, the mother and the daughter did not know about this until 2 days later when they smelled something really awful, and then firemen pulled out the dead body. Now, 2 things. Number 1, the mother and daughter saw as the father's dead body was being removed from the chimney, and number 2, she was 9 years old, and it was the first time she found out there was no Santa Claus. I mean, the amount of therapy that she should have had, the amount of anguish this girl has gone through, and of course, Billy drags her through even more. They make a cute couple, but Billy terrorizes her. Okay, back to the gremlins. So as I said before, the town was in complete chaos. Now all is completely silent. No humans, no gremlins. Turns out the gremlins are in the theater. They're watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So Billy comes up with the brilliant plan to just explode the entire theater by causing a leak in the gas pipes. But he doesn't even check to see if there's anybody around in the corresponding buildings. So he blows up all these gremlins. He blew up an entire building and he didn't check to see if anybody was around. I mean, this guy is reckless. Okay, you can give him a little bit of credit because he killed all the gremlins except one. I'll go on to that in a bit. But Jesus Christ, he had to blow up a building because of his screw up. Anyway, so it turns out that Stripe is the only surviving gremlin. He decided to go to another store where there's candy because apparently the gremlins like killing people, booze, and candy. Oh, and watching Disney films. Anyway, so there's this big battle at the end, but let me tell you something. Do you think that Billy ends up saving the day? Wrong. No, it's Gizmo. You know, the little mogwai who has been tortured throughout this entire film, not just by the gremlins, but by Billy himself and his family. He's the one who saves the day. He ends up opening blinds so that sunlight comes through, even though Gizmo himself could be killed by this. But he does it to save the day, while Billy sits there with his thumb up his ass. Oh, Jesus, it's unbelievable. By the way, the ending is the cherry on top. So, first things first, on the television, all these fires, all this destruction, all these people who are dead and injured, apparently, they just blame it all on mass hysteria. Can you believe the injustice? Billy and his family basically get away scot-free without having to answer for any of the destruction and their crimes that they have committed. I mean, it is unbelievable. Can you imagine the mental anguish that you were attacked by these gremlins and you were injured, and then they tell you, oh, you were just all imagining that. And Billy and his family don't say anything. It's not like they are going to go up and say like, no, it was real. We had them. Awful, 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 awful behavior. Now, the final thing that I'll mention is that Wing comes by and picks up Gizmo, and they're actually upset. Billy's like, I can't believe you're taking Gizmo. It's like, are you kidding me? Do you see what you have done? Even he points it out. But then he's got the nerve to say, you're not ready yet, but maybe one day you'll be ready. Are you crazy, Wing? Do not give this kid any pets. His dog is barely alive in this film. I mean, don't give him anything. But that's the way the movie ends. Billy suffers no consequences for his actions. The town is in complete ruins. Lives are destroyed. There's people who are dead. And he's sad because Gizmo is going away. Oh, how sad. But there you go. There's my case. And if you disagree with me, comment below. And if you haven't hit that like and subscribe, what are you waiting for? Thank you all. Have a good evening.